Welcome to this edition of Rossiter's Ringside Report. I'm Mark Chang, joined by Rossiter, who is the head trainer at the NFL boxing program, and we have a guest tonight, Edson Rios. Why don't we dive right into it? Big fight card this past weekend, amateur boxing, Westminster, Maryland. You had three guys in the card. Brian E. was the first fight. He fought Rossiter Diva out of Crawford Boxing. Let's get your thoughts on that.
Well, it was good to see Robert Crawford again. He's been around boxing for a long time, and he's a good trainer. He always has good fighters, and that night was no exception. Now Brian, he's a sturdy kid, built strong, and he came out there, and I think he started getting tired and started winging his punches and trying to take the guy out, and which wasn't, the proper strategy against a Robert Crawford fighter, especially. But most corners will make those adjustments. But that's what happened to Brian. He didn't embarrass himself. He went, landed a couple good shots. It just it's hard to knock somebody out in the amateurs. So lesson well learned for him to be in better shape the next time. What do we got next?
Yeah, I think Brian was in good shape. I noticed that Rossiter was noticeably bigger, and that takes more out of a smaller fighter to fight a bigger fighter. And in all of Brian's fights, it's been kind of that common theme, right? And really, when I look at that, if Brian's here, it needs to get to here. I feel like 80% of that gap is going to be closed by when he gets himself in the right weight class. Next fight was Caleb Gonda and John Donahue. That was a barn burner.
The first round, I thought Donahue won it because he was throwing a lot of punches and he was jabbing up and down. And Caleb had his head up in the air and he was hands down, chin up, rather than chin down, hands up. When we came back to corner, we made the adjustments. I told him to get down with him. He got down with him, and then it was a different ball game. He was able to get the decision, out-punch the kid. And then,
that was a really good win for him because Caleb, he could be 3-0 because his fights were so close. But sometimes it really helps your confidence to get that validation from the judges that, okay, we believe that you won this fight. And you're absolutely right about that first round. His head was up, he was getting hit, and you said in the corner, get to his level, and that made all the difference. Before we get to the third fight, I do want to mention there was one fight which is the 10th fight of the evening. It was Carl Bain, B-E-H-M, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Antoine Alston. And let me tell you, that is probably the fight of the night because Carl Bain initially, he was getting hit, he was taking some punches and even took a standing 8 count. And then he keeps trying, he starts coming back and I was like, man, this kid's got a lot of heart. And I tell you, he just kept that momentum going and eventually won the fight. So if you're watching Carl Bain, congrats to you, it's an excellent fight. But now let's get into the rematch. Edson Rios versus Gianni Constantino was a great action-packed fight the first time. This one was no different. Let's get you your thoughts first.
Right, well, we spent a lot of time the last episode talking about this fight because it was a close fight and it was a rematch. We went in for the rematch. And this time Edison fought, he was a little busier in there. A little more hit movement and stuff, and I think that made the difference in the bout. The other thing to say about these two very polite young men, and they represented the sport well, and they represented sportsmanship very well.
They did.
I just can't say enough about that. But Edison fought a good hard fight. He pressured him, kept him going forward. I told him between corners, you got to put the pressure on him, you got to keep him backing up because he has a hard time fighting back up. Most people do have a hard time fighting backing up. And he got it on the inside and kept busy, and it paid off. We got that decision.
Yeah, that was a great action-packed fight. And you're right, both of these guys are outside the ring, total gentlemen. Inside the ring, these guys are warriors. They were really throwing some leather there. I actually talked to Gianni a bit afterwards. Very affable young man, and as you know, wishing you all the success in your boxing career, as well as you, Gianni, if you're watching. But let's get your thoughts on the fight. You were the guy in the ring.
Yeah, well, it's a fun fight for the second time. First fight was also great. The first fight, definitely could have thrown more punches. You know, we thought we ended up etching the fight, and but it didn't go our way. So this time around, I just made sure they were really up the volume, up the punches, and just stay busier. You know, and we ended up taking away the fight. You know, so yeah, it was a great night and it was fun.
Yeah, it was a great night of boxing. Many of these fights out of the 14, crowd was standing up on their feet. Definitely the timing was good because, well, before I go into that, the matchmaking was just superb because in at least 2/3 of these fights, they could have gone either way. The timing was good too because they started earlier in the afternoon to let everybody out in time to see the Benavidez-Morrel fight. And you called that one, Coach Leo. Give us your thoughts on Benavidez-Morrel.
Yeah, well, the first couple of rounds there, I was watching Morrel, and he was, he looked good. He looked good. I was almost second guessing myself, but then Bonavia, as you had stated, he's got the experience. He's had the bigger fights, and has the experience, and was able to get the distance on him and put the pressure on him, and just made him fight a whole lot harder than he wanted to. But still, Morales at the end, he was able to drop him. He hurt him earlier than he dropped him. I mean, it was a devastating knockdown, but it was made it a 2-point round anyhow, and then he turned around and lost point deduction. But it turned out like I anticipated, but not exactly as I anticipated. I expected to be a lot to be as close as what it was. But Kim Morales got a future.
Yeah, very, very talented. I think the pressure just Benavidez put too much pressure on him. Let's close out with your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it was a great fight, great card. Definitely, when they were exchanging a lot in the center of the ring, and a lot of times I feel like Morrel was getting the better of the exchanges, but Benavidez is one of those guys that tends to pick up the pace as the round goes by, and he's been there a few times already, so I think experience really prevailed in this fight. But Morrel put up a hell of a fight, and it was action packed the whole way through. But it was the right decision was made, I believe, at the end.